My name is Commander Nyota Uhura. I am a fictional character created for TV in the late 1960s. I was a groundbreaking addition to the landscape of television of the era. In the time my character was created, women of color were normally relegated to the roles of servants or prostitutes. I inspired Dr. Mae Jemison, the first black woman to fly aboard the space shuttle to join NASA. Dr. Martin Luther King said to Nichelle Nichols, the actress that played my character, "You don't have a black role, you have an equal role. I represent racial and gender equality."
My name is Jefferson Pierce. You might know me as the superhero character known as Black Lightning. I'm a fictional character created for comic books in the late 1970s. I was DC Comics' first African-American superhero with his own comic book series. In the time my character was created, black men in comics were often relegated to roles as comic relief, criminals, or worse. In addition to being a founding member of the Outsiders and a recurring member of the Justice League, I also served as Secretary of Education under President Lex Luthor. In my non-hero identity, I am an educator and school principal in an economically disadvantaged area. I represent racial equality and the importance of equal access to education for all.
My name is Black Vulcan. I'm a fictional character created in the late 1970s for children's television. I was not a pre-existing DC Comics character. I was created specifically for the cartoon. I only appeared in 2 episodes of the original series alongside other characters of color, including Native American man and a Japanese man. I represent the need for a large corporation to sell breakfast cereal and toys to small children in an effort to promote cultural diversity strictly for profit.
Recorded in Round Rock, Texas, the #1 place to shelter in place, it's the What's Update with Xander Quation.
Shelter in Place edition.
So, I understand you're a professional educator? Yes, and I can respect a woman in uniform. Well, I think teachers are hot. Feelings mutual.
Hey, moron. Black Lightning's married.
Oh, yeah.
And we're rolling.
Welcome to the What's Update. I'm Xander Quation. Let's get started. Now, I'm too young to remember a very influential series that ran for 25 seasons from 1972 to 1997. It was called ABC After School Special. By definition, the entire show was made up of very special episodes. Like, up next is a very special episode of Family Ties, where Tom Hanks is a cough syrup chugging alcoholic. You always knew that you should have a box of tissues handy. But Xander, what does this have to do with making fun of the news? You may be asking yourself in that tone of voice, which is kind of harsh, but here we are. In any case, good question. This week, we decided to take a break from the news to present to you Ross Geller, Gloria Delgado-Pritchett, and Cookie Lyon. What do these characters from very popular and financially successful TV shows have in common? They all present gross stereotypes and are good examples of plastic representation in the media. Achieving meaningful representation in the current era of television and film is a stated goal of many creators, producers, and distributors. Gender swaps, colorblind casting, or non-traditional casting is becoming more and more prevalent. When done well, it is transformational, but more often than not, it is awkward, blatant, or just plain offensive. Plastic representation is mere visual diversity rather than actual diversity. The objective is to look progressive or inclusive. It panders to marginalized audiences in a culturally specific and contextual way, with new versions of previously established characters. As marginalized groups have gained more economic power, content creators in TV and film have made attempts to include more women, people of color, and non-heteronormative characters. Or, if you're producing a CW show, it's the many colors of Benetton, all day, all week. Media executives have congratulated themselves for being inclusive, asserting that depictions that include marginalized groups automatically give them a free woke pass and is a sign of their success as progressives. Unfortunately, these gains are only a workaround for developing new, complex characters that are truly representative. Diversity for the sake of diversity, while not really telling a unique story, is odious to the people who long to see their stories told in a meaningful way. Essentially, these depictions lack depth. Meaningful diversity comes from when the story can positively answer the following. Are the characters fully realized individuals? Do the writers and producers appear knowledgeable and interested in the worlds and perspectives of the diverse characters? Does the diversity of the cast appear natural? And finally, Do the series or film producers achieve the natural diversity necessary to realistically present a story's setting or subject matter? In cases where it is done well, like the Marvel Cinematic Universe and in the Star Trek franchise, characters of color, female characters, and non-heteronormative characters are presented as individuals first, with their race, gender, or sexual orientation only a minor aspect of the whole person. Now, I can hear you saying, "But Xander, you're a white hetero-cis man with his own TV show. Where do you get off complaining about representation?" Well, as a Jewish person, the only place in media I am fully and positively represented is during award show season in the Outstanding Writing for a Variety Music or Comedy Program category. I am cringingly aware when representation of my subgroup is done wrong. Researchers that study the content of popular television have identified 3 dominant stereotypes of Jews in television: the overbearing Jewish mother, like Wolowitz's mom on Big Bang Theory, the cheap Jew, like Larry David on Curb Your Enthusiasm, or the Jewish American princess, like Rachel Green on Friends. Each is a lazy stereotype that perpetuates misinformation and misconceptions of the tapestry of the Jewish experience in America. In many television shows, Jewishness is only expressible as the opposite of Christianity, that it is only ever in a negative relation to the dominant culture. Hanukkah as Jewish Christmas, Passover as Jewish Easter. Jewishness is seen as otherness, but only through direct comparison to Christianity, which is presented as the baseline normal. This feeling of otherness is common for marginalized groups. Inclusion and acceptance start by changing how members of a group are seen. As long as depictions of marginalized groups are presented by predominantly white, male, Christian, middle to upper class writers and creators, true representation will be a long time coming. While there is an upsurge in media produced by women, people of color, and non-heteronormative creators, true representation will stay out of reach for audiences ravenous to see their own faces and experiences on the big and small screens. For more on this, we now join our senior representation in media correspondents, Jaden Franklin, Elise Gamble, and Michaela Watson. Hey everyone, it's me,
Hey,
Zen, and
we were waiting for you.
Yeah, it's been like 5 minutes. We thought you forgot.
I know I'm new, but is this normal, the host being late to start the segment?
wait, what, late? No, I was on time, wasn't I? Now I'm confused.
It's okay, Zan. We're not mad.
Yeah, you're normally really prepared.
Don't feel bad about it. We're fine.
Thanks? Well, anyway, since we're all here, let's talk about representation in media.
It's a real problem.
Even in this day and age of awareness of the importance of acknowledging diversity and representation, mass media platforms still have a lot to learn.
So true. It's clear that some content creators have made a real effort to make sure that the faces on stage, film, television, and even literature look like the faces of people we see in everyday life.
Do you feel that they're doing a good job, or does it just feel like a vain attempt to appear PC or cash in on marginalized audiences?
Some people are doing a good job. Marvel Entertainment has slowly been adding characters of color and giving them prominent roles in the superhero genre, which has mostly been white dudes and spandex.
And then there are the blatant cases of creators going for colorblind casting that are failing miserably.
The Cursed Child, at best, was some trash fan fiction. I mean, come on, JK. A black
And what about Lavender Brown?
There is way too much to unpack on all that nonsense, but back to an earlier point, there are a lot of ham-fisted attempts about appearing to be representative.
And you know what else? It's really disappointing when it's done for economic reasons.
Or when it is done poorly, like when it is obvious you have white males writing for people of color.
Or even worse, when they write for women of color.
Are there any cases of characters you feel were done correctly, or ones that inspired you and made you feel seen?
For me, it was Susie Carmichael from Rugrats. She was a young black girl with natural hair who came from a well-off family with 2 parents in the household. She didn't fit the mold of a typical black character. She had a strong mother who encouraged her creativity while also stressing the importance of an education. She could speak 10 languages by the time she was in high school. She wasn't there for comedic relief, and she stood up for herself anytime she was treated poorly. And even when she was sad when she felt like it. As a child, it meant a lot to see her on my screen. And as an individual who grew up surrounded by white people, it's comforting to know that I don't have to latch on to some stereotype just to have an identity or feel validated as a Black woman.
And I don't think there is a correct way to portray a person of color. Everyone within a race is different. However, I feel highlighting accurate racial obstacles, stereotypes, and culture of a person of color is really important. I feel Korra from Legend of Korra, which is a spinoff from Avatar: Last Airbender, is a character I can most identify with because she isn't ashamed of who she is and because there's no prevalent institutionalized racism in the world of Avatar. It's so refreshing to see a hot-blooded and confident woman of color like myself not having to deal with the same BS and stereotypes as, say, an angry Black woman. Moreover, the show highlights important concepts like politics, power, and privilege within the bending community, which can parallel with some factors in society today. Korra is inspiring because she has the strong support of her friends and she's the leading protagonist. I really connected with her because she is treated based on her character and not her skin color, and she faces trauma that molds her into a more understanding and passionate lead for the show.
And for me, it was when I was watching Into the Spider-Verse. Watching Miles Morales was very transformational. It was the first time I'd ever seen a superhero who looked like me on the big screen. Not only visually, but I connected to his background as well. Miles and I have similar upbringings and same parent-child relationships with our mothers and fathers. I fell in love with the character, and I started to see him more in video games and animated shows, and I thought to myself, there's definitely a real possibility they can make a live-action Miles Morales film.
You know, you do kind of look like Miles. Didn't you write and produce a promo video or something? Kind of like, hey, hire me to be a live-action Miles type of thing.
I did.
Well, we'll definitely put that on the channel for people to see. Back to the original issue, what would each of you like to see done to improve representation in media?
Let characters of color be happy. I don't think that just because a character is Black means they have to be sad or serious or sassy, or they have to have some big old tragedy that defines and shapes them as a character. Let them be happy and let them have a good time.
Absolutely. Skin color has nothing to do with how human emotion is displayed. Your skin color doesn't determine who you are as a person. Your character, upbringing, and experiences are what shapes you. That is something everybody should know by now. True representation should come from telling stories that are first and foremost about the people.
And quit with the minority being the funny side friend in the plot. Incorporate more POC leads, and in those character roles, allow those stories to be told.
These are all really good points, and we should get on that right away. Make the show you want to see, right? Although, I'm not exactly sure that Jackass with a Boom Mic and Rabble of Rowdy Rebels was what I originally pitched to TSTV.
Who you calling rowdy?
Who are you calling a rebel?
And how are you going to call Aaron a jackass when he's not even here to defend himself, Zan?
No, man. I'm the jackass here.
Jackass? Zan? Oh yeah, that tracks.
Well, we all knew that when you put on that donkey mask for the midsummer in 7th grade.
Jaden Franklin, Elise Gamble, and Michaela Watson, everyone. We'll be right back. We are very lucky today to have a guest who is truly a legend in his field. And as always, we'll start our interview with the basic 3 questions. First, who are you?
I'm Tony Isabella. I have been a comic book writer for close to 50 years and still write lots of stuff.
All right, that answers the what do as well. So finally, why?
Why? I was dropped on my head a lot as an infant.
Oh, God. We're off to a great start here, ladies and gentlemen.
I come from a family of would-be jugglers, and they just were not very good at it.
All right. Okay, do Do you have anything right now that you're working on that you'd like to tell our audience about?
Well, one of the things I'm doing, there's a syndicated newspaper feature called Last Kiss by a friend of mine, John Lustig. And what John does is take random panels from old romance comics and write gags for them. Well, John's been doing this for about 15 years, all by himself, and recently decided he needs some help. So I write about 1 or 2 gags a week for him for this feature. And while I've done syndicated, comic strip work in the past, it's always been anonymous. John actually credits, whenever one of my gag appears, John credits it. And I'm having a great time with it. I mean, they're just wacky gags, and I seem to have connected with his audience. So that's something I do every week. I am gearing up to resume doing Tony Isabella's bloggy thing. And while all this is going on, I'm developing a comic project for a friend of mine who I think could become, the next big media star. I'm developing a TV series for one of the cast members of Black Lightning. And I'm just doing all sorts of stuff like that. I mean, I have a wide range of interests, and I'll be addressing most of them because it's pretty clear that I'm not going to be going to too many conventions this year, if any.
With this TV series you're producing, will this be like a spin-off of Black Lightning, focusing on?
No, I'm not producing it. This is in the really early stages. I've become close with several of the cast members, and one of them and I were talking about something, and I came up with a concept that I thought would work for him, but it's in the very early stages. One of the things I'll be doing in the next week or two is writing kind of a mini Bible for this new series. And if he likes it and I like it, then we'll start talking about, well, who do we pitch this to? But it's not a spin-off of Black Lightning. It just would star one of the cast members of the show.
All right. Well, on the show Black Lightning, how did the guest appearance that you had recently on the show come about, and what was your favorite thing about that experience?
Well, I got to tell you, my experience with the Black Lightning TV show has been wonderful, as opposed to my experiences with DC Comics. Early on, a guy named Jeff Johns, who was an executive at DC, actually was very helpful in arranging for DC and I to come to an agreement. It wasn't a perfect agreement, but it was a lot better than I ever had with them before. And one of the reasons Jeff did this, besides he's a stand-up guy and has always liked my writing and has always loved Black Lightning, is that he wanted to do a Black Lightning TV show, but didn't want to do it if I was going to be unhappy with it. So once that ball started rolling, I was asked to write a core values paper for the show. And one of the reasons I love the show so much is that even though their Black Lightning is somewhat different than mine, they share the same core values. So I wrote this core values paper, spent hours on the phone with Salim and Mara Braca-Keel, who are the showrunners. Salim flew me out to spend a day with the writers, really before anything other than the pilot script had been written. And all along the way, I've been treated with great love and respect from everyone on the show. I've been to the set of, I've hung out with cast members at conventions. I visited the set a couple of times where, it's over 100 people will come up to me and thank me for their jobs. And it's just a ball watching them put this show together. I never realized how much goes into every episode of a show and how many people work on it. It's just an amazing thing to see. And as I said, they treat me with great love and respect, and they've always wanted me to do a cameo. And we finally made that happen in the season finale of season 3, where I got to play Judge Isabella, along with Judge Von Eden and an actress, Jennifer Krista Palmer, who was the chief judge, and really, was who I looked to for cues as I did my bit. And it was fun. It was fun. I got paid an obscene amount of money to do this, to do what amounted to one line, because I had more than one. I had 2 lines, but one of them got cut, during the editing process. So, but again, it's just wonderful. I mean, I get to hang out with people. I mean, one time when I was on the set, I had lunch with Marvin Jones, who plays Tobias Whale, and Bill Duke, who's a legend, who plays Agent Odell. And that was the way the lunches are on the set. I mean, everybody hangs out together, cast, crew, production people, builders. It's really the show is like a family to me. It's like this extended family, and the kind of love I get from people there is just amazing. One time when I was on the set, China, who plays Black Lightning's youngest daughter, comes out of a scene and she's wearing her costume, and she sees me. She had not realized I was going to be on the set that day. She sees me. She literally squealed with delight and ran over to hug me. And that's what I get from everybody on that show. This is not normal for comics creators. We are usually, the stuff made from our creations usually doesn't follow our core values as closely. And we're certainly not treated this well for the most part. But from day one, the Black Lightning TV series has always, made me feel part of their family. I've never had an official role with the show, but, I like to think I'm the show's #1 fan.
All right. Just something you mentioned earlier. You do have a history of creative struggles with DC Comics. Has that gotten better over the years, or are you still cautious with their use of
No.
characters?
There was a time when I thought things were going to get better, and quite frankly, all they wanted to do was try to keep me happy because they were afraid I'd say mean things about the TV series. Because, again, one hand not knowing what the other was doing, they didn't realize I already had a relationship, and a great relationship, with the TV series. The problem with DC, and especially Black Lightning, besides the fact that the company rarely keeps its agreements with me, or if they do, they keep the letter of them but not the spirit, they don't understand Black Lightning. And that's really idiotic, because he's not that complicated a character. He cares about 3 things more than anything else: his family, which would include Lynn Stewart, his students, and his community. And after I did the Black Lightning Cold Dead Hands series, which was kind of a reboot of the character that made him a little bit younger and set it in my hometown of Cleveland, they decided that Black Lightning was best served by being basically, Batman's support Negro. He leaves his family, he leaves his students, he leaves his community to do jobs for Batman, because Batman's is emotionally unavailable because of whatever's going on in Batman's own book. So basically, this current Batman and the Outsiders book is awful. They don't understand Black Lightning. Most of the characters are treated badly or not written well. And it's, there's a phrase racist cops use, which they abbreviate as NHI, no humans involved. And that's what racist cops say to each other to denote that whatever crime scene or situation they're going into just involves people of color. So in their mind, no humans involved. That's what Batman of the Outsiders is in this way. None of these so-called heroes are actually helping people. They're just doing Batman's bidding. Batman's bought a penthouse apartment for Black Lightning in Gotham City. And apparently after, at night when he leaves the money on the dresser for Black Lightning. It's just an awful, insulting portrayal of a character that means so much to so many people. And it's not an ego thing on my part. Ego went out the window when this started happening to me at conventions. Someone will come up to me with tears in their eyes and hug me because Black Lightning was the first time they saw themselves in a comic book. And that was, that was a life-changing thing for me the first time it happened. I realized for the first time just how important this character is to so many readers and now to so many viewers. And so whether DC likes it or not, I will always call them out on their crap when they do Black Lightning wrong. And right now they're doing Black Lightning about as wrong as you can possibly do them. Thank God the show is there because the show gets it. The show is an authentic portrayal of Black Lightning.
So the TV show is able to follow more of your vision for your character. Do you feel that that is contributed by your set of core values that you were able to give to the show?
Sure. I mean, we share the same core values for the characters. They have done things with the characters that I never had the means to do. I mean, when you have actual actors playing these characters, you can take them a lot farther. I've told Salim and Marvin, who plays Tobias Whale, and James Remar, who plays Peter Gamby, and Christine Adams, who plays Lynn, that they have done things with my characters that I never dreamed could be put on the screen, because I was, of course, limited by my comic book thinking. Tobias Whale and Peter Gamby are so much better in the show than I ever wrote them. So the show is an extension of my original core values for the character. And they do a brilliant job of it. The writing is great. The acting is great. The sets are amazing. I remember the first time I was on the set, they weren't using the Club 100 set, which is the nightclub owned by Tobias Whale. And I would go into that set from time to time, and inevitably there were crew members taking naps in the booths. But I got all around. I was all around Peter Gamby's tailor shop, which is a great set. They even had me wear a vest, the vest that's used for the stand-in for lighting purposes and everything, and it actually does light up, as does Cress's costume, but Cress's costume is digitally enhanced in the editing process. So yeah, every visit to the set has just been amazing.
Is there any sort of almost surreal feeling to know that you created these settings and then being able to walk into them in real life?
Yes. Actually, the most I guess shocking to me episodes of that sort did not happen on the set. As I said, Black Lightning Cold Dead Hands is set in Cleveland, which is pretty much where I live. The local TV station that airs Black Lightning wanted to do an interview with me about the comic book and about the TV show. And they asked me, well, why don't we call one of the comic shops and do the interview there? And I said, well, yes, we could do that. It's been done 1,000 times before, but we could do that. But instead, let me suggest this. The final battle in Cold Dead Hands takes place at the old abandoned Coast Guard station, which is, right near downtown Cleveland. I said, why don't we film it there? You can show panels of the Coast Guard stations as it's shown in the comic book, and we can do it there. Now, I had never been to the Coast Guard station. I sent photo references to the artist, Clayton Henry, who did a great job capturing it. So I'm there for the interview, and it suddenly hits me that I'm standing in the panel of my own comic book. And that was a pretty wild feeling, because the artist had nailed the look of the place so well that I felt like I had stepped into the comic book.
Huh. So looking at the comics industry, TV, and superhero shows and such overall, especially with the CW, how do you feel about the push to increase representation in the media in the modern day? And do you feel like you helped in at least a small way to make this happen and get that ball rolling?
Well, I will tell you the reason. People ask, well, why did this white guy create Black Lightning? And it's because when I was growing up in Cleveland, I was a teenager in Cleveland. Cleveland was a very segregated city. Blacks were probably on one side of town, whites on the other. The first black friends I made were comic book fans that came from the east side of Cleveland to the west side of Cleveland to attend comic book club meetings. I had started this comic book club in one of the west side recreational centers. And, meeting these guys, becoming friends with them, excuse me a minute, it struck me that, it's a shame there aren't more characters that look like my friends. It wasn't, diversity wasn't part of my language then, but fairness was, and it just didn't strike me as fair. So I always told myself if I ever got into comics, I would do my best to work on characters of color and create new characters of color for the comics. At Marvel, I worked on things like Power Man and the Falcon. I created Misty Knight. And then when I got to DC, I was able to create a character from scratch, Black Lightning, and that's probably my signature creation. I mean, I have others. I created Tiger. I created Black Goliath. I created Misty Knight. But Black Lightning is my signature creation, and the one I'm most proud of, and the one that has had the most effect on it, on comics. And I've long since lost count of how many comics creators, especially comics creators of color, who have told me that Black Lightning was pivotal to their growing up in comics. And today I feel, my definition of diversity today is that if we have readers out there, they should see themselves, in the comics in a respectful manner, except for the villains, of course. You can crap on them all you like. So, I've had gay characters. I think there should be gay characters. There should be, I am not a person of faith, which is kind of strange since Black Lightning and his family so clearly are. But I think people of faith should be represented in the comics respectfully. And generally in the past, when we've had people of faith, they've been the villains. They've been, the bigots. They've been the witch burners. They've been the anti-mutant people. And I love to see that kind of thing changing. I mean, if I ever write comics again, which is really iffy because, the comics industry, isn't kind to people who are, pushing 70. And if indeed there's even going to be a lot of comic books in the future. But if I do write more comic books, and I do have several things in mind, you will see me continue putting diverse characters in my comics. In Black Lightning Cold Dead Hands, which I think is the best thing I've ever written, we have gay characters. We have, both male and female. We have, black characters. We have, obviously, black characters. We also have a shape-shifting alien who is probably, the most illegal immigrant you could think of. He's a shape-shifting, gender-fluid alien from another planet who was supposed to die, and I ended up, every time I wrote him, I liked him better, so I didn't kill him. But yeah, and I'm a big believer in diversity, and you'll see, again, if I write more comic books, you'll see more of that from me.
All right. So for Black Lightning as a character, is he based in any way by someone you knew in your past, like from growing up?
No. I mean, I had good teachers, but none of them were quite like Black Lightning. I did steal the business about him coming back to his old school to teach from Welcome Back, Kotter. But no, I mean, no, he wasn't. He what he came from was my desire, to create a African American superhero who was really, in my mind, a step above the others. I love the Black Panther, but he's an African king. I love Luke Cage, but unfairly or not, he was an ex-con. In one of the stupidest things any Marvel writer ever did, the Falcon was turned into a former criminal. They just weren't the black hero I wanted to do. So, but they were all valuable learning experiences, and I think I did a decent job in them. And then when I came to DC, I was able to create Black Lightning. But even from the start, I was fighting with them. When I got to DC, they had recruited me from Marvel. They had offered me a great deal, which of course they didn't honor. But one of the things they handed me, they had 2 scripts of a character called the Black Bomber. The Black Bomber was a racist white guy who took part in chemical camouflage experiments in Vietnam to let him blend into the jungle better. This show had no effect on him while he was in Vietnam, but when he would get home in times of stress, he would turn into this black superhero. The black superhero didn't know that he was really a white racist. The white racist didn't know he turned into a black superhero. He just thought he had blackouts. Each of them had a girlfriend that witnessed the transformation and apparently never said anything to them. In each of the 2 scripts, as the white racist, he saves somebody who he can't see clearly and then gets all bent out of shape because he risked his life for a black person. And to add the final cherry on this vile, vile Sunday, his uniform basically looked like a basketball uniform. So DC hands me these 2 scripts and say, we would like you to punch them up and then take over the book with the 3rd issue. And I said, and I read them, and then I got back to DC and I said, you can't do this. And they go, what do you mean we can't do this? We paid for the scripts. I said, these scripts are offensive. They are the most offensive things I have ever read in comics. If you publish these scripts, if you publish this comic book, people will come to your offices with pitchforks and torches. And they go, well, how could you possibly know that? I go, because I'll be leading them. It took me weeks to boil down the argument that convinced them to ditch this character, which was a question. Do you really want your first headline black superhero to be a white racist? And they finally agreed, yeah, I guess that's not a good idea. So I basically had 3 weeks to create Black Lightning in his world. I created everything about Jefferson Pierce in his world before I created, any of the superhero stuff. In fact, about an hour and a half before the pitch meeting at which I was going to pitch this character to Joe Orlando and Sal Harrison, I suddenly realized that I had neglected to give him a superhero name or powers or anything like that.
Oh, no.
But comic writers are trained to think fast on their feet, and I was wandering around the office, and I saw, I think it was a rough sketch of Wonder Woman. It was for a cover of Wonder Woman lassoing a black lightning bolt. And somebody had jotted copy on it like, Hera, help me stop this black lightning from destroying the city. And this was the 70s, and I'm thinking, Black Lightning, that's catchy. So that's where I got the name for the character, and once I had the name, you know, it wasn't brain surgery to give him electrical powers. But I had made him an Olympic athlete because I knew he'd have to be physical. I decided I wanted him to be in Suicide Slum in the inner city of Metropolis because I preferred down-to-earth superheroes over the big cosmic guys. I knew I basically, everything I did to create his world and the people around it was to give me the tools I would need to write what I hoped would be exciting stories that would appeal to our readers.
So essentially, when creating the character of Black Lightning, you wanted to start with the personal story, and the whole theme of the superpowers was a last minute thought. So you wanted to tell the story.
The best, to my mind, the best characters have that human story, and you know, I've always, you know, I mean, that's what attracted me. You know, I was about ready to get out of comics when I discovered Marvel Comics. And what Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko did, they made these characters real people. And that's what appealed to me. That made me want to write comics myself. And I always, you know, I get to know the characters first. If I know the characters, if I made the characters interesting, the stories will come.
It's beautiful. Let's see. So is there a character, a superhero or not, that you always wish you could have written for?
You know, there's a bunch of those. There was a time when I really wanted to write Batman until DC made him so toxic. I love the Challengers of the Unknown, the originals created by Jack Kirby. But the one time I had an opportunity to write them, I kind of froze because I love the characters so much. I'm a big fan of Lee Falk's The Phantom from the newspaper strips. But, you know, there's so many different things because, again, it's like I was a while back a DC executive. This is when they were still pretending that they wanted to work with me. Said they were looking for a new take on one of their characters. And it wasn't a character I'd ever really thought about. But the way my mind works, within an hour and a half, I had a new take on the character that I really liked. Their lame reason for rejecting this was that they didn't feel the character had enough motivation. Trust me, the character had plenty of motivation. And my response to them was, well, you know, not every superhero can watch his parents gunned down in an alley or come from a planet that just blew up. His motivations were very human, were very real. But again, it's a game companies like DC will play. They'll pretend they want to work with you, but then they'll shoot down anything you give them, no matter how good it is. I pitched a graphic novel that they thought was brilliant. But then when I gave them the proposal, which was exactly what I had talked about, they at that point decided, oh, we've decided to not do so many Batman graphic novels, even though this wasn't really a Batman graphic novel. And as of course you've noticed, there's been like no Batman graphic novels available for sale. But no, it's, you know, Marvel's turned down stuff for me too. But Marvel's always given me reasons that I can accept, that we're not just BS. So really, I mean, at this point in my career, I mean, I'm just, you know, I'm working on stuff. Whether it'll ever be brought to the marketplace or not, I don't know. But, you know, I'm not going to stop writing until I can't see the screen.
We're going to around the end of our time, but just one last question. In your career, is there anything you would have done differently if you knew then what you do now?
Oh my God, I would have gotten my agreement with DC in writing. I believe that they would honor their agreement with me, and they never put the original Black Lightning deal in writing, and indeed started violating it within a week of our agreeing to it. So yeah, get it in writing, and get a lawyer to look over it. I have a very fine attorney right now who's worked out very good deals, very good agreements for me with both DC and Marvel. Marvel has always treated me with respect. I've never had to chase Marvel for money. DC, at least for the most part, will honor the letter of the agreement while, doing the Mamba all over the spirit of the agreement. But yeah, that's the thing. Get it in writing. Get it in writing.
All right, so 2 lessons for today: get it in writing and get a good attorney.
Yes.
All right, well, I think that's all the time we have for today. Mr. Tony Isabella, everybody. Woo! All right, once again, thank you for coming on the show.
Happy to do so.
Thank you to Tony Isabella for being our guest, as well as to correspondents Michaela Watson, Jaden Franklin, and Elise Gamble, and to you, the audience. Thank you for watching this very special episode of the What's Update, and as always, it is what it is.